Initially, I had thought that I would hire someone to be the chief designer of the rocket, but I couldn't actually find anyone who was willing to join, who was good. So the people who were willing to join, who I thought couldn't do the job, and those who could do the job weren't willing to join. So I ended up being the chief designer of the rocket. And I think perhaps if I'd been more knowledgeable, we would have gotten to orbit sooner than Flight 4. But it was, that's kind of how it went.
Some of them are going to sound like, well, you've heard it before, but it's worth re-emphasizing. I think the first is you need to work, depending upon how well you want to do, and particularly if you're starting a company, you need to work super hard. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer. So the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night, 7 days a week, all the time. And I sort of briefly had a girlfriend in that period, and in order to be with me, she had to sleep in the office. So work hard, every waking hour. That's the thing I would say, particularly if you're starting a company. And I mean, if you do simple math, you say okay, if somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company. The other thing I'd say is that if you're creating a company or if you're joining a company, the most important thing is to attract great people. So either join a group that's amazing, that you really respect, or if you're building a company, you've got to gather great people. I mean, all a company is a group of people that have gathered together to create a product or service. And so depending upon how talented and hardworking that group is, and the degree to which they are focused cohesively in a good direction, that will determine the success of the company. So do everything you can to gather great people if you're creating a company. Then I'd say focus on signal over noise. A lot of companies get confused. They spend money on things that don't actually make the product better. So, for example, at Tesla, we've never spent any money on advertising. We put all of the money into R&D and manufacturing and design to try to make the car as good as possible. And I think that's the way to go. So for any given company, just can keep thinking about, are these efforts that people are expending, are they resulting in a better product or service? And if they're not, stop those efforts. And then the final thing is to sort of don't just follow the trend. So you may have heard me say that it's good to think in terms of the physics approach of first principles, which is, rather than reasoning by analogy, you boil things down to the most fundamental truths you can imagine, and you reason up from there. And this is a good way to figure out if something really makes sense, or if it's just what everybody else is doing. It's hard to think that way. You can't think that way about everything. It takes a lot of effort. But if you're trying to do something new, it's the best way to think. And that framework was developed by physicists to figure out counterintuitive things like quantum mechanics. So it's really a powerful method. Anyway, so that's, and then I think that the final thing I would encourage you to do is, now is the time to take risk. You don't have, you don't have kids. Your obligation. Well, sorry. Probably don't have kids. But as you get older, your obligations increase. So and once you have a family, you start taking risk not just for yourself, but for your family as well. It gets much harder to do things that might not work out. So now is the time to do that before you have those obligations. So I would encourage you to take risks now. Do something bold. You won't regret it. Thank you.
All right, last question. 3 pieces of advice to entrepreneurs. What are your 3 pieces? I'm an entrepreneur, so you can share them with me.
Okay.
How would you advise me?
Well, first of all, I really need to give some thought to like how can I provide advice that would be most helpful, and I'm not sure I've given enough thought to that to give you the best possible answer. But I think certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment, because people tend to a natural human tendency is wishful thinking. So a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? And that is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
You know? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly extremely tenacious, and then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week.
Gosh,
and
that's
then
a lot of work.
All those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that in 1 year you will achieve what they achieve. You will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve.
Okay, I like your work ethic.
So, all right.
Thanks. Elon.
Detail as well as the long arc of what's important for the company. The quip though about being co-CEO is more than just a joke, in that I wonder if in ways that are hard to predict, and you wouldn't set out for this amount of work, it seems insane, but inevitably both companies cannot expect more than half your time at most. It sort of naturally forces a delegation upon you and an expectation they have to rise up for partial awareness at best, right? Yeah. And I just wonder if that helps drive prioritization and really focusing on what's important a bit more than you otherwise might have to.
It probably does. Yeah, I think I probably do. Yeah, I mean, because I have to triage the things that I do at each company, and constantly think about what is the most useful thing that I could do. But even with that, it still actually does take an enormous amount of time. And for a while there, I was just doing constant 100-hour weeks. And that's definitely wearing. And now I'm kind of in the 80 to 90, which is more manageable. But that if you divide that by 2, it's only like maybe 45 hours per company, which is not much when there's a lot of things going on.
You're like a slacker. I mean,
yeah.
So it is interesting also how you have a love for certain aspects of the product. So at SpaceX, the whole concept and the vision of going to Mars, backing into features and stuff. It's a wonderful thing to see. I think what obviously should strike folks in the room as remarkable is the diversity of industries that you've tackled, right? From commercial banking to the military-industrial complex to the automotive industry. These are heavily regulated industries that generally investors flee from, and startups routinely fail in, and they haven't seen much change for good reason over decades. So there might not be an obvious pattern in which industry you tend to thrive in, but I wonder if there's a pattern perhaps in process. Like, do you approach each of
So what advice do I have for college graduates interested in getting involved in the spheres you've tapped into? Certainly I'd invite you to apply for a job at SolarCity or Tesla or SpaceX. And if not, then if that doesn't work for whatever reason, then I guess apply to jobs at other companies in that arena, or try starting a company. Although I have to say that in the space business is quite hard to start a company in the space business because it's such a capital-intensive business. So it may be better to do something in solar power, or if you're going to do it in cars, do it as kind of a component supplier for cars or something like that.
Well, this has been Elon Musk answering your questions. Have a great day.